Well, you're very welcome to Tip GAA TV, and we're here to preview what is going to be a brilliant weekend of football in the Premier County in Tipperary. I'm Stephen Gleeson, and I'm thrilled to be joined by two of the great managers across the last decade, Charlie McGeever of Clonmel Commercials and John Ryan from Upperchurch Drombane, who have coached many teams down the years. John is the current Tip Minor Camogie manager, and Charlie, a selector with David Power, has managed the Tip Minors as well, and also Finn Harps in the League of Ireland as well. And lads, great to have you here today. We're previewing two huge games on Sunday, the senior final at 3:15 between Upperchurch Drombane and Clonmel Commercials. Ballina will take the field before that against Mullinahone at 1 p.m. And lads, great to chat with both of you today. And it's I suppose, a novel final in many ways. And Charlie, when Commercials played Upperchurch back in the group stages, did you think these two would meet again in the final?
Hello, Stephen. Just to say, first, I feel under pressure here with two Upperchurch men, in the room. It's a difficulty for a start, Stephen. So I'm just calling you out before we get going, But I suppose, what could I say? I suppose I've kept a good eye on Upperchurch for the last while, and there's been huge progress there. We've known that. Was it going to be this year? Was it going to be another year? It was always in the pipeline. It would happen, I suppose, over a period of time with the youth involved, and I'm sure John will be talking more about that. But on that day, I would have to say that they had Commercials in trouble for the first half of the match, certainly. So things changed a little bit second half. I think the goal swung the game, if my memory serves me right. But let's say one thing. Let's be left in no doubt that their performance in the semi-final against Loughmore was exceptional, and they deservedly in the county final this year. No doubt about that.
And Charlie, this week for Upperchurch and Commercials, you've been there many times with Commercials down the years. As a manager, what would be going on in your head this week? Is this a week where there's loads to do, or is everything done, or what's your take on this week, county final week?
I suppose everybody approaches it very differently. For us in Clonmel, I suppose, for the last while, I don't know, I think it's maybe the sixth final in the last 8 years. I'm not sure, maybe 5 in the last 7 or something like that. So a lot of this group are used to it. So you're not dealing with the occasion itself as much as you might be in other ways. But your preparation is key, I suppose, for the week. You've had a fortnight now to have a look at the opposition, whoever it's going to be. In this case, it's Upperchurch Drombane. So I'm sure that they've done their video analysis, they've done their preparation. You're not pushing. Your training is done at this stage of the year. And I know John will agree with that. And also the fact that, I suppose, Upperchurch being involved in the two competitions right up to the stage, I always feel as a help. Training gets in the way actually of matches. That's the way I feel at this time of the year. If you're not prepared at this time of the year, then you won't be in a county final. So from that point of view, the preparation is more about a mental approach as opposed to the game, and players focusing on individual performances and battles that are heading their way more so than anything else. And obviously having a fully fit group for the day is vital.
Good stuff. And John, you've managed Upperchurch teams down the years, and you're living in the parish. And this week I was in Thurles, and there's black and amber flags out, and they're not Kilkenny supporters, and cars around Cashel, Clonmel with black and amber flags on the window. What's the buzz like in the village around Upperchurch?
In fairness, we've had a great year, Stephen, as you know, both hurling and football, and there's a huge buzz around for the last number of weeks. As the progression went on, the talk was back a couple of weeks, could Upperchurch get into the double, and unfortunately we fell a bit short last Sunday. But yeah, it's a great time for us. You have to remember, as you well know yourself, we're a rural club with small enough population as it goes, and for us to be involved in the latter stages, and this is our first senior final of any description, and either hurling or football, and it's a great time in any club to get to your first county final. And in saying that, then it does create a great buzz, and there's great excitement, and lots of talk going on about, what we'll do and who should play where and who should be playing and who shouldn't be playing, and lots of banter going on. And just to take up on a point there, I'd love to get a picture of the black and amber flags that are around Clonmel at the minute. If you could send them up, Charlie, and show them to us, I'd be delighted to see them.
I personally haven't seen them, John, just to say. So I think Stephen probably has. I think it's sort of embedded in him at the minute, and I think he's looking at those glasses, John. As you will be in preparation for your county final.
Yeah, I was in the cars now in Clonmel. In Thurles, they're in the windows, all right. But John, do you think last week's hurling result, going down to Kilruan McDonough's, will that affect Upperchurch this week, or dampen the spirits somewhat?
Naturally, a loss is always going to dampen the spirit in any team. Nobody wants to lose. You start out at the beginning of every year. You want to win all your games. You want to get to the finals. You want to win the finals. So yeah, it's going to take a little bit of the excitement out of it. But in saying that, they're a bunch of very resilient young men. They have worked very, very hard all week. It won't be lost in the fact that this is the first county final that the club has ever been in at senior level. So that in itself is going to drive them on. It would have been great to win the game, but that's over and done with. All these young guys now and young people, and I see myself with the young girls, they deal with things very quickly and get over it very quickly and move on very quickly, and it's on to the next thing, which is a great way to be, So they have, very, very much so disappointed on Sunday evening, but come Monday morning, the focus was on the football, and they're back with renewed enthusiasm again. Let's get on. Let's see where we can go with this, and have the very, very best cut at this that we can do.
Yeah, and Charlie, I suppose it's similar enough in Clonmel, because a lot of the Commercials lads were playing with St. Mary's in the Premier Intermediate Hurling Championship and lost out to Gortnahoe in that.
Yeah, I was at that game, and I would say, I suppose what I took from that game was the performance of Gortnahoe. I thought was just excellent. They were. It was a high quality game. It wasn't a scrappy game of hurling. It was a very high quality game. I think maybe in the end that little bit of physicality. I think Mary's, as you know, Stephen, are a young. They're compared to Commercials, I suppose. When you take the football only lads out of it, they're a very young side, based on a lot of under 20s maybe and under 21s. But I think from our perspective of dealing with it, I suppose it's a little bit different because the two clubs are separate and the focus within Commercials will be only on the football final. We've been in this situation before on a number of occasions because Marys are pushing hard and doing well, particularly a number of years ago when they won the junior and progressed in Munster, as you remember. So we've been down that road before and dealing with it. But going back to maybe what John was saying there about Upperchurch situation, let's be clear about the first thing. The story of the county football championship is Upperchurch Drombane. That is the story. That's this year's story, and no doubt about it. They've broken into first and foremost into what I would call the grouping of those that are up for winning it, and it's not a big group of clubs. So that's progression hugely in its own right. But the second part of it, which is from last week to this week, I think that, like any team, you're there to win. There's only one team going to win each of those competitions, and you get a momentum going when you're on a run. And Upperchurch have been on that run. No more than Lochmore were on that run last year. Now, to carry it through, once you've reached the final, I know that last week will have a slight effect, but they will refocus because it's such a big occasion. And I have no doubt that both teams will be fully focused. I don't consider focus to be any issue this weekend for either of the two teams.
Charlie, you've experienced the agony and the ecstasy of county final day, beating Lochmore and then losing to a John McGrath special late on in the final last year. Will next Sunday define the winter for the players, win or lose?
Well, I think the county defines everybody. I mean, you set out your stall to do that. I would add to that Commercials over the last good while now would look at that as one step in a number of steps, because you have to look beyond it. I think at times you've got to start looking not beyond it at the minute, but that you hope to progress through the county, outside of the county as well. I think that's something that one has to look at as well. So you're hoping that you can get to a county final, win a county final, and then move out into a Munster Championship and try and prolong your year and not have it just defined by the county championship. But in saying that, each obstacle has to be crossed as you go along. And you know the story, Stephen, is that most of the matches in your life, they're defined by small margins. Like you're going to either win by a point or two, or you're going to lose by a point or two. And, you know, you have to take the rough with the smooth. I suppose last year we had to take the rough in the sense that we lost the match to an exceptional Lockmore team. Let's make no bones about it. And John McGrath last year was, without question, the story, the player maybe of both championships. I look at the current championship and I think Paul Shanahan, no disrespect to the rest, but Paul Shanahan has, in my mind, been the outstanding player of the football championship this summer, right from the beginning, because he's so influential and he has made it happen on all the big days. But if we look at our loss last year, Stephen, I suppose it was that tight a game. And you know, I would still have a little bit of bearing on the fact that we were maybe whistled out of it a little bit last year in that final. But you have to take the rough with the smooth and move on and hope that that doesn't happen again. Going back to the semi-final and what might have defined the semi-final for me from Upperchurch's perspective was it's a very tight game. I remember there's quite a big call at one stage right at the end where there might have been a pickup off the ground and it was decided it was a throw ball, and it was, I think, a point game at the time, and Jack Butler went up and won that ball, and you know, that defines a team, I think, and that gives team momentum as well. So it's how you deal with the big moments, Stephen, and Upperchurch have shown that they can deal with those moments. So you know, that they're there for a reason on Sunday.
Yeah, John, Charlie just mentioned Paul Shanahan and Jack Butler, two of the key players there for Upperchurch. You know, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, Paul was in with the tip panel there for a while. I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah, Paul's been an incredible footballer and a big man, you know. And Jack also, I think, played minor in 21 with Tip, you know, so he's no stranger to the blue and gold. Yeah, two fine footballers, absolutely. But it's not, you know, a team is not defined by one or two footballers. A team is defined by, nowadays, by the 16, 17, 18 players that they may use, up to 20 players that they'll use. It's a panel. And that's what we have, I think, is maybe we don't have the abundance of talent that are there for commercial, you know, as in they have a lot of county representatives, which we don't have. But what we do have is a very tight-knit group of young men that's willing to give it everything every day. They will leave it all out on the field. And you can see them in training. You've been involved in teams with me, Stephen, and you've seen how they can train, how they work hard, how they go about their business. They will give absolutely every ounce. If it's good enough, great. And if it's not, you know, they will go on again. I mean, you have to remember we won a county final, intermediate football county final in 15. So we're only a senior football club for the last, I think, just 6 years. You know, so our progression, you know, like it's going in the right direction. It's going in upward spiral. Like we didn't. We were in relegation, I think, the first year, and then we were in third position, and we were finished third in the group on a couple of occasions, and then we got to second place, and so on. And now we're here at this. You know, it's been a natural progression. These guys work. They just work. That's what they do. They work hard, and they work hard for each other. And you know, when you have a situation like we have, been both senior hurling and football. And there's a few teams now that are in that position. I think there's 5 or 6 teams at that minute, and it's a great buzz to be involved in both at this late stage in the year. And one complements the other, as far as I'm concerned. Now there is people out there who will say, "Look, if you're a hurling team, you're a hurling team. If you're a football team, you're a football team." I personally don't agree. I think one complements the other, and I also think for us it worked because we managed the two teams, and I think that was key for us, that we had the same management involved for both, so that, you know, when we have a hurling session or a couple of hurling sessions, you know, we wanted to throw in the football and have a football session, we were making that decision. We weren't going to another management group to do that. You know what I mean? So we were controlling the both codes, and that was a help. And I always feel that the football is a big help to the hurling, but you need to embrace it. And you need to embrace it, number one, as a club, but you also need to embrace it as management. And I think it's important. And I think Lockmore probably the same. And I know Eamon Corcoran was the same with Brackens, that, you had the same management team. And I think it's a huge help. And I think on Sunday, if I'm not greatly mistaken, if Mullinahone win on Sunday, they will also be a dual senior club. And I mean, there is a lot more back through the years. I think Killadangan were senior hurling and football back about 4 or 5 years ago. So where Drummond and Drummer are gone back again, I think this year. There is, I think there is more enthusiasm for both codes to run side by side, and especially at the senior level. And I think one definitely helps the other.
Take me back there a few years, John, when you were manager and you had a big football game against Cahir and a hurling game against Killadangan on the same week.
Yeah, we had that situation back in 2017. I think we were playing Cahir on the Tuesday or Wednesday evening, and we were playing Killadangan in the hurling on the Sunday evening. And there was a very small turnaround, and there was discussion around the parish at the time, should we play the football or shouldn't we play the football? Because we were predominantly, I suppose, a hurling club, But no, we played the both games, and we played Cahir in Cahir, and we won the game. But the buzz and the momentum it gave us going into play against Killadangan on the Sunday was immense. It was incredible, and it really drove on the guys, and they got a lot of confidence from it. And we went on and we won that game as well. And I firmly believe that the football game, that win, just gave us that extra little pep in our step, if you like, to go ahead and have that confidence. We were still on a high after winning that game, and that's where I come from on this, is that you will get confidence from a win, no matter what it is. One will help the other, and we have been involved in hurling games that we've lost, but lucky enough we had a chance to bounce back the week later and play a football game, and we won the football game, and it started the ball rolling again for us. It started the whole momentum cycle going again. And look, and it's just my opinion. I know there will be people who will disagree with it, but for me, I would definitely think that one helps the other.
Great stuff, John. And I know you played hurling with Tip, and your brother Mick played hurling and football minor under 21, and with Tip back in the day. So the dual spirit has been there for a long time in Upperchurch. And Charlie, you were minor football manager, was it 2015, Liam Cahill 2016, Liam Cahill, the minor hurling manager the same year. You had a lot of dual players on that, like Brian McGrath and these guys that have gone on to play at senior. Do you think the dual thing is still an issue in Tip, or do you think it's just how do you work it? Is it up to each club individually, or going forward even with the championship?
And now, Stephen, we could spend the rest of the night now talking on this. If you, that's the point. I think there's a realization that, look, there is a dual problem, no doubt about that, and it will be there, and it's not a problem. It shouldn't be a problem, because essentially Tipperary is a hurling county. We all accept that. It's just how we progress as many players as possible, I suppose. And I agree with just about everything John said there. I mean, there's a drift towards and no harm, but I think the model is Lockmore Castellani. I think that's been the model for the last number of years, where the combined management is the same, structure is the same, the time allocated depending on the importance of the game and so on is well managed. I think John will know as well that it's better to be playing games than not, Stephen. It's if you can play week in, week out, and in a different code, I think it gives a freshness to what you're doing. You're playing something different, even though and your fitness levels are being kept there. And as John said, winning matches, brings on confidence. But on the dual element of things, if we think back to that year, Stephen, both teams reached the All-Ireland final. Both minor teams were in an All-Ireland final. Rare enough, even in either code. So both groups progressed all the way through the championship to that degree. I think we finished up with something around 8 on each. I'd ask the question where they are now. Where are those players now? And that tells a story in itself, which would need a long time to discuss. But we all, apart from just reaching All Ireland finals, underage, and John's involved in it as much as myself. It's about progressing players. It's about player development. It necessarily doesn't say that winning a competition is the end result. It's being involved and immersing players in big occasions. The further you go, obviously, the better the occasion and the more players learn from it. And there's nowhere better to be than in Croke Park. If you can get any player worth the salt and any code wants to play in Croke Park. That year, a number of players had 4 opportunities to play in Croke Park, 2 in football and 2 in hurling, and that will bring you brings on its own elements of confidence and everything else. But I think that coming back to the local scene and the club scene, the bigger clubs in football, especially as we look at it, just look at the changing dynamics of football within the county. You've got Bracken's making the breakthrough, no doubt about that, being in a county final a couple of years ago. Now we have Upperchurch making that breakthrough. Lockmore have been there for a long time. That's 3 clubs, mid clubs, making that transition, I suppose. We mentioned intermediate on Sunday, played by 2 teams who are seriously hurling orientated maybe and have a possibility going to senior football. And I think that's all progressive. I think that you can't just define dualship by what happens in the county setup. It has to happen at club setup. If it's not being worked at in club, then it will never really develop at county level. And it's great to see that these players are playing both, enjoying both, and being progressive in both. And then it throws it over to the other teams who are maybe football orientated to pick up their socks and get to there. So there is a changing dynamic within the county in terms of that. And I know we'll be talking a little bit of the intermediate setup. The ability and I suppose the level of matches at intermediate level has been very high this year. I've seen quite a bit of it. So that's great to see as well. And look, at the end of the day, the best hurlers will always make it through to be the best hurlers and represent Tipperary. It would be nice to see maybe a few more players making the transition to football if they haven't made the grade in hurling and maybe progress that. And that's where we're at, Steve.
Charlie, you mentioned the intermediate final, Ballina and Mullinahone. Ballina have a tip senior in football in Stephen O'Brien, a tip senior in hurling in Michael Breen. So like they're really that dual club in operation and 2 lads playing at the highest level. They'll come close to beating Mullinahone.
Well, you along with that, you've a soccer goalkeeper. You've Jack Brady in goals. Now whether he is this weekend or not, but has been. Which look, I'm sure John knows as well. If you ask me, the most important person in a Gaelic football team at the minute is the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper nearly starts and finishes everything, and is very key to that. But yes, you've mentioned the players that you've mentioned. They've a very young squad. They've done really well in Ballina at underage level over the last number of years. My eyes were open last year in Clonmel in the under-19 semi-final. County, I think it's county semi-final. Great performance from them, from Ballina. And so that underage aspect of it is coming through there as well. But it's been driven by people like Stephen O'Brien. Stephen O'Brien, didn't make no doubt about it, Stephen O'Brien is driving on this football resurgence there at the minute. It's great to see him fit again. All boats are rising in Ballina through their performances in both codes, and they've given the time to both codes. And their football, to be quite honest, the football they're playing, Stephen, is exceptional. No more so than Mullinahone. And again, we're looking at people like Mikey O'Shea, who's made the breakthrough. That's what I like to see. A young lad who maybe didn't make it through in the hurling, who now has absolutely made the breakthrough in football at 20 years of age, and he's the linchpin there, along with a lot of experience with the Currans and everything else. So it's going to be a fine football match, and I wouldn't like to call it, but either team will make a very good senior club.
And John, Charlie mentioned there some of the Mullinahone players, like their hurling year ended not in a great way. They were beaten in the group, after going from the heights of being top of the group going into it to being in the relegation at the end of the hurling. But they have a chance now to get silverware playing football, which is it's a club success.
It is a club success, and you can see what it means to these players to be involved. That they have picked themselves up, as you said, maybe from from what wasn't one of their better years, in the hurling sense, because you'll always expect Mullinahone to be thereabouts at the latter stages of the year. But they've gone on now, and they have, regrouped and put all their efforts into the football. And you can see what it means to clubs like that, they're in the county final now, and I'm sure they're going to prepare it the same way for that county final as they would if they were in the senior hurling county final. These clubs they're always competitive. They just want to win. And if it's senior hurling or it's intermediate football, they want to win. That is it. And it's great to see them. And I mean, they will have a little bit, if they win on Sunday, they will have to sit down and put a bit of thought into what they're going to do next year with two senior teams, because it will take a little bit of management, and I hope that they embrace both codes, because for me, I think the more teams that do this, that embrace the hurling and the football together, I think the better for both championships, and I think the better for the county in the long run. We will both see the benefits for that. I was involved with the 16 Camogie last year, and in fairness to the football management, they couldn't have been better to work with. We had a crossover of 8 or 9 players, and it was brilliant. That you could pick up the phone, ring the manager. Pat Morrissey was involved, and you tell them of your schedule, and they would help to work around. And I think that's what needs to be done. That we can go ahead and, as I say again, I'm using this word all the time, but I think it has to be done. You have to embrace the clubs, and the county would have to embrace, both codes, and if they do, both will succeed.
And John, going back to your own club, Upperchurch, what's really interesting is the lads that play in defence in hurling are the defenders in football, and vice versa. Conor Fahy scoring goals in hurling, and he's scoring goals in football against Lockmore in the semi-final. It's similar positions, isn't it? Like,
it's very similar. Yeah, Charlie made a point there that the goalie is very important person, in football, because it all starts and ends unfortunately for him at times with the goalie. Hurling is getting very much like that as well now. I mean, obviously they have to be a good stop shotter, but their distribution of the ball, the puck outs and their clearances, they're all going, they're being pinged to a person that's out to receive the ball and move it on again. And football, when the guys line out, they have a natural instinct, these forwards, whether it's football or hurling, they have that natural instinct. And a defender, for me, is the same. Is a natural instinct to defend. And look, these guys just get on and just do whatever they are. If you ask Conor Fahy, and he's a fine forward, to go back and play cornerback, Conor will give you 100%, and the same with whoever you ask to go up into the forwards. But for me, it's a natural instinct. If you're a forward, you have a natural eye for goal. You have a natural instinct to go and get your scores. And I think that's it. I think that's the way it is for most guys.
You mentioned coaching there. Lockmore had Mick Dempsey involved, who was involved with Kilkenny Hurlers, who was a Laois footballer, I believe, before that. So the tactics are similar in both sports, really, aren't they now?
Yeah, well, some would say that hurling has gone very much like football, a lot of short passing, and they are too. I mean, I suppose Limerick started playing through the lines, and most clubs now have adapted that, that they're playing the short ball across the field out to the next line, and they're keeping possession, and they're working through the phases up along and getting the person in the best position to have a shot at goal, But like Mick Dempsey, in fairness to him, like, what a coach to have on your side, for a club side, you know what I mean? In fairness, he has fairly well seen it all with Brian Cody, and he's won All Irelands and played football with Laois. So I mean, the CV that man is incredible. But it is getting very alike. The two games are getting very, very alike. And it's all about the possession. And hopefully on Sunday you'll see Upperchurch Drombane with more possession than Commercials.
Charlie, would you agree with that, with tactics and possession and the way that hurling is mirroring football?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to talk too much about the hurling because obviously it's not my side of things, but it is. I watching it absolutely. But if we go to the football end of things, I suppose from a coaching perspective, if you take the football championship alone, just take the county championship alone, and you're starting from scratch, a couple of things. One, you get a commitment from a group of fellas. That's the first thing that's key. Secondly, you get a fit group of players, so you get them fit. And thirdly, you have a game plan. Now, if you put a game plan together, and they're fit and they've committed to it, you're going to go a long way in the football championship. That will happen without a shadow of a doubt. You're going into the knockout stages. What creates the winning mentality or getting there is the cherry on top is having people who can score, putting scores on the board. No matter how long you work with your group, you need to have people at the end of it. And what Upperchurch now possess, I suppose, in that regard, are the two Shanahan brothers. We'll take Paul and Luke being young. And I mean, I remember watching Upperchurch for a couple of years where there was an over-reliance on Paul Shanahan. Paul had to be in the hub of all that was going on. Now you've twin spearheads with the two boys. And if you can add a third, better still. And I have to say, look, and from a coaching perspective, the what you would pay your money to watch, and the standout moment of the summer was Conor Fahey's goal. Like, there's no shadow of doubt about it. The ball delivered by Paul Shanahan from the sideline for that goal. Now, you have to bear in mind the time of the game when it was in the melting pot, 2 points up at the stage. Who you're playing against, probably the best defensive setup you can come up against in Lochmore. And threaded through the eye of a needle into somebody's chest, 25 yards out, play a 1-2 and stick it in the back of the net. It is, without shadow of a doubt. I mean, Maurice Fitzgerald put a ball over from the sideline in Semple Stadium where the posts are well apart. This was threaded through a needle, that ball from Paul. And I would have paid the money just to watch it. It was just that standout moment. Now, that takes a lot of elements. But I'm going back to what I said earlier. Coaching is important, but those other elements are every bit as important, and getting that winning mentality. And there's a progression there of layer upon layer. And go back now probably to Upperchurch's period under John and others to get to where they are, because Conor Dwyer has been constantly telling me for a number of years of the coming of Upperchurch. And I keep telling to Conor, I'm waiting for it. And by God, he wasn't wrong this time. He was completely spot on. So it's not something that's happened today or yesterday. So to embrace two codes, there has to be progression. Like, these players everybody progresses through coaching. Bottom line, whichever element you want to progress, whether it's the finishing, whether it's the team play, whether it's the structure that's in place. So there's been a layer after layer. You just don't come from nowhere overnight. And that's what's happened with Upperchurch and with other teams. I've said I think they're coming just on the heels of Bracken's kind of similarity over the last couple of years. And it's great to see. And that what it brings you is a structure. There's a structure to what, and a style of play to what Upperchurch do. And it's a very difficult style to play against. And when John says he's hoping that they will have more of the football, they probably will have more of the football than Commercials because of the style of play. When they get it, it's up to jumper time. Sometimes they won't take it off them because they will keep it. Now, sometimes people say you have to kick the football. Not necessarily. It's like the hurling. You can through the lines now. You don't have to drive it up the field. So there's a lot of work being done there. And what's great about Upperchurch is they're comfortable with what the style of play they have, and they have bought into it. And it's progressed a long, long way. And I think that's down to, again, the coaching that's been going on. It's all right turning around and saying, the people that are there at the minute have contributed, absolutely. But a lot of others over the last number of years have contributed to that breakthrough with Upperchurch. And as I say, it's a breath of fresh air to this summer's championship, no doubt about that.
Good stuff, Charlie. And John, he mentioned the Upperchurch forwards there. I mean, to have some of the quality players like Commercials have over the last decade is huge too. The likes of Mikey Quinlivan, Seamus Kennedy. I know he won an All-Ireland under your brother Mick, and he's huge for them in football, same way as he is in hurling for Tip.
Yeah, Commercial, as I said earlier, they have an array of talent, in fairness. I mean, they have, I don't know, Charlie, you'll probably tell me, have they 9, 10, 11 representatives on the senior football panel at the minute?
Well, they have a number, but how influential is the question, I suppose. But yeah, traditionally, there would always be a number, because it is a football stronghold. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is how they play on the day, John, to be quite honest, and if they're allowed to play on the day.
Yeah, no, I get all that. It's any given day, and no player gets up on the day of a match and says, I'm going to play badly today. Things happen any given day. Look, the Commercials, what they have is experience in the position that they're in at the minute. You won the county final in 15, 17, 19 and 20. You were county champions, and you were beaten in one or two finals as well. They have experience at this level. This is our first foray into a senior county final. Will it phase the lads, our lads? No, it won't phase the lads. They will get out there and they will meet the challenge, and they will do their very, very best. So if it's good enough or not, I don't know. But they will give everything that they have. Commercials have a lot of talent, in fairness. I mean, you mentioned Michael Quinlivan. I mean, top of his game. Seamus Kennedy, has bring a lot of experience, not just hurling, but football. He's a fine footballer. Some of the Kennedys, John Kennedy's sons. I mean, John himself was just an outstanding player, in hurling, and I mean his sons are playing now with the same style as John graced the hurling field. There is a lot of talent down there, and in fairness, as Charlie said about the structures and the fitness and the commitment and all the rest of it, the X factor for a team is that little individual flair that players have. It's that little flair. You spoke about Conor Fahey. Conor's always been thereabouts with his speed and his skill to get that goal. And that's the X factor that sets some teams or some results apart. That one thing or two things that an individual will do outside of the structures and outside of the norm that you have trained for. It's that little flair, that little dink, that little shot that he took on that nobody else could get. That is the thing at the end of the day that's going to get over the line, because we all have the structures, they all have the fitness. I don't think it's going to come down to anything like that, but it will come down to those little things that the individual can do, that they just have that little flair. And in fairness, with Quinlivan and some of the Kennedys and stuff, they have that. But then again, we have as well. Paul can get some great scores. And you mentioned Luke there as well. They're two great score getters. Jack Butler, in fairness to him, will take a score. But look, it's going to be down to on the day for me, how the teams will apply themselves. In fairness, the commercial guys will probably be used to the occasion. It might take us a little while to get into it, but in fairness, I will say it again, our guys will leave everything on the field. They will give everything, albeit commercial are probably gone in as favourites, and quite rightly so. But we'll see how it goes in the day.
Is it a bit, John, like when Upperchurch are playing Thurles Sarsfields and you have this team with a huge tradition, multiple county wins across the decades, and you go in as underdog? It's a bit like that in some ways, again, but football this time.
Yeah, we are. We're the underdog going in on Sunday. There's no doubt about that. Everybody will agree with that. But with that, then, some teams will lift themselves. We've had the underdog tag more often than we've had the favourites tag, and we're used to that, but slowly but surely we're changing that. We're moving up along, and at the beginning of the year, if any of the three of us was asked who would be in the county football final, I'm not so sure any one of us, and us being from the parish, would we have said Upperchurch? We might have said, if we got to a semi-final or quarter-final, maybe that's it. But would we actually have put Upperchurch in the final? We would definitely have maybe put Commercials in the final, with maybe 1, 2 or 3 other teams. But that is the way it is. I mean, we have earned our right to be there now. We've played our way there, and we are there. And like any given day, anything can happen.
Charlie, Mikey Quinlivan up top there, getting the ball to someone like him is always huge, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, look, I mean, I think at the end of the day, Michael, traditionally over the years, and like what makes Michael what Michael Quinlivan is he generally turns up on the big occasions. He's one of those players that performs, when the occasion is there. He's done it in everywhere. He's done it in Croke Park. He's done it in Semple. He's done it in Munster finals. He's always been to the hub of what's happened. And that generation, there's a generation within commercials, as you know, it's once in a generation. I think the group that are there was a time when they were inexperienced. There was a time when they were developing. They're now at their peak, I think, in terms of age anyway. Most of them in their late 20s. Not so many would say too young, and not so many too old. And probably, if anything, would be saying, I'd say it myself, having been there for a long time, we probably underachieved a little bit. We probably haven't kicked on from winning the Munster title and going very close to an All-Ireland club title in 15. So that's probably one of the big regrets. But, Michael's not on his own. You've mentioned some of the others. People that should be remembered in a game like this, we all talk about those up top, the Paul Shanahans, the Michael Quinlivans. At the other end of the field, you've got people like Kevin Fahey, who's an outstanding defender in my book. He's going to contribute not only as a defender, but he's always on the score sheet as well. He's playing some unbelievable football at the minute. And let's not forget that when Commercials played Loughmore or Upperchurch in the preliminary match, I'm fairly sure that Dean Carew wasn't around. I think he was in America at the time. And Dean's been in with us in the senior football panel this year, and he is an athlete. I mean, he's only starting his journey. He is a physical monster, to be quite honest, and he's going to be some unit come the end of the day. And he was missing, and I think maybe Luke might have been, not my understanding is he might have been sick on the day. Certainly didn't finish out the game. So defenders deserve their right as well. I mean, I would have had Jack Butler in the minor squad in my time. I would have had Paul in the minor squad in my time. So I know quite a bit about the Upperchurch players. As in looking at it, Stephen, they're a very athletic group of players. They're a big athletic side, and that's a huge asset to have in that end. So a lot of credit to getting players to be athletically developed. But back to I think it'll come down to as John said, that special moment, or our memory of last year, I suppose, Stephen, will be John McGrath's goals, and that right. So that was the deciding factor. Paul Shanahan's delivery, I still say it, in the semi-final, deciding factor. In these matches, somebody who has that little sprinkle of magic will maybe win it, and it could be a Michael Quinlivan, it could be a Jack Kennedy, it could be a Paul Shanahan, it could be a Luke Shanahan, because I'm going back to this young fella. We haven't really talked about him. He has certainly made the hair stand in the back of my head a couple of times, no doubt about that, on my neck a couple of times. Four from play, I think, the last day against 4 from play against Loughmore is some achievement by any standards, and some of them were superb. I mean, they were from out towards the sideline. So again, it's great to see talent, and it's great to see special moments. And as I say, John, I hope that this Sunday, that as much as I'd like to see Commercials win it, obviously, that is won by that sort of thing. There's a good final that's underlined by something brilliant, in the day.
Yeah, John, he mentioned Luke Shanahan there, great soccer player with Clonmel Rangers as well. Absolutely gifted, and, should be playing at a very high level in soccer, I think, as well. But brilliant hurler, brilliant footballer. He's a special talent, John, and you've seen him play up along.
Very, 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 very good talent. And, we come across lots of talented players up through the years. But I think what defines Luke is his attitude. He just has an incredible attitude to everything. If you ask Luke to go back and play in goals, he'll do it with the same enthusiasm as he will playing corner forward. He's just an incredible young man. And he has a very, very big future for himself. If he can manage to stay injury free, he has it all. I mean, some of the points during the championship that he has scored, both on his left and right foot, have been incredible. You talk about the 4 he got against Loughmore. There was a couple he got in the quarterfinal against Brackens. There was one in particular where he went into the corner and came back around out to 21, and it was just as sweet a point as you've ever seen kicked in the quarterfinal. It was fantastic, and he kicked another one with his left foot maybe 10 minutes later. But it's his natural talent is there for everybody to see, and when you go to games like that, you can pick out these guys with the natural talent, but it's behind the scenes that Luke really, comes to the fore when he's training, when he's, whatever he's asked to do, he will do 100% and give 100%. And I think that, to me, is what will define Luke and is defining Luke. Not alone his talent, his obvious talent, but just the way he goes about his business. Incredible.
Good stuff. We're going to wrap up shortly. Charlie, have you many players seen in the championship you like to look up to bring in for Tip teams next year?
I think it's been a good. It was a slow burning championship, Stephen. I think, but it's certainly come to the fore, and we've had a couple of meetings already. There are phone calls ongoing to players, conversations going. We certainly feel that we're in a more solid position than we've been for the last couple of years, and that we're looking specifically at players now for a type of game and particular positions, and they've come to the fore. Players have come to and it's good to see recognized players who are already in the panel playing well through the championship. I think I've already alluded to them. If you take the intermediate championship as an example, we've mentioned Mikey O'Shea and Stephen O'Brien, who will both be in action on Sunday, and they're playing at the top of their game, and that's great to see as well, that those that are already in are playing to that degree. Been some outstanding performance. The intermediate, going back to the intermediate, like the semi-final stages, where you had two very good semi-finals, for example, was a sign that there's plenty of talent there. There's no question that there are younger players, but I still feel that football in Tip, we have to realize that it may be the players might be that little bit more developed and that little bit older by the time we get hold of them in the football end, because they may have to go through the hurling system, we'll say, to see what comes out the other end. I already alluded to Mikey O'Shea being an example of that. And again, we hope that there's plenty of talent out there, but you also have to take in the whole player, the mentality, the commitment. I mean, there's a huge commitment to intercounty anything. I mean, camogie, football, hurling, it's a full-time thing for the year, and a lot depends on the players' commitment to actually buy in. And we hope, Stephen, that we will get players to buy in. There's been some tasty performances, no doubt about that, from players who we're not even talking about in other clubs. I've enjoyed my summer for a change. I think it's a lifetime in Clonmel. I'd say it's in my 20 years here, it's the first summer that I've had where I haven't had, we'll say, any club involvement, and it's been great to be able to go around and watch other teams play and watch players and maybe do it with an unbiased set of eyes and look at what the progression is. And it's great to see the underdog, as John might say, with Upperchurch. I think they were probably underdogs in the quarter-final when you look at it, that they had to take on a Brackens team that already in a county final a couple of years ago, certainly semi-final, regular semi-finalists, a lot more than in the next round, regular finalists, winners, and now on to commercials. So, I don't think the tag will make any difference. Isn't it huge progression to be coming through those matches? If Upperchurch were to prevail on Sunday, they've beaten everybody, really. I mean, they've taken care of. They've had no easy run, put it like that. They're in a group of commercials for a start, difficult quarter, more difficult semi-final, and a more difficult final. So, as man says, from an NCT perspective, the car is well tested, and let's see what comes out at the end.
And Charlie, the ladies of Clonmel are in action as well on Sunday. Your commitment is being tested.
Look, I suppose, John, we all know we're all in a situation where siblings and children and all the rest of it. My daughter Saoirse is involved in that. They're in a Munster semi-final in Kerry on Sunday. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to split the two. My two boys are involved with commercial, but neither of them will be starting on Sunday. So I'm going to put my commercial ladies hat on and head down to Kerry. I was at an unbelievable semi-final last weekend down in Fermoy, a 1-point game, one of those really tight games where, and they put up, to be fair, their best performance of the year. They've been sluggish, to say, at best all year in Tip, funny enough, but seemingly they've gone outside Tip and they've opened up and they had a great win. It was a great performance to get there, and I'm sure a much tougher performance target ahead on Sunday. But my mind will be in Thurles, but my eyes will be firmly fixed on what's happening in Kerry, and hope to have a double on Sunday if possible. Now, I'm not saying it will happen, but I have to hope that would be the case.
Charlie, did you miss the commitment of it all, the time that goes into it, the effort the last few years with commercials?
Oh, that's just true. I don't think commitment is the question. I think the buzz around it. I do miss the buzz, Stephen, no doubt about it. I would sit at home and watch two flies going up a wall. If I would watch any sport, I would. I've always been just a sports person. I love sport in every form, anything, cricket, boxing, anything. But I've always had a commitment to be involved somewhere. It's part of my DNA, I suppose. And I had a little bit of a health scare last year and had to sit back for a while. Thankfully, that's over me now, and I'm hopefully back in harness with Tip now coming up the upcoming season. But it probably gave a chance to reflect on a few things. But has it changed anything? Not at all. Would I prefer to be in Semple on Sunday on the sideline? Absolutely, give everything for. I would love it. It's what makes me tick. I mean, that's what I love doing, and nothing better than to see players progress. I'm sure John the same. When you look at players that you've brought through or that you've been involved in, we've talked there about Luke Shanahan and others, and the same thing with commercials. There's a group of players that have progressed through the years from 12 or 10s all the way through, who have been touched by lots of people. I mean, a lot of people have dug in there, whether you're the under 12 manager or up to the senior manager. Always like there's plaudits there of your senior team's done well and well done you. But it's never well done you. It's always well done everybody else that's been associated with it. And that goes a long way back for both clubs. Because like I say, it's probably an easy path for commercials over the years because they are purely a football club. But that path that Upperchurch have taken and have reached this year, it's a pat on the back to everybody involved in the club, right back to the beginning. I mean, what a year. And it would be nice for them to finish it off with one championship, hoping it doesn't happen. But as I say, they have progressed to that point. And would I miss it? Absolutely, Stephen. I would give anything to be there on the sideline Sunday. But the team that are there have worked very, very hard. Management group have come in and changed things around a bit, freshened it up a bit, and defined themselves back to where they want to be. And I'm sure that they are hopeful that they'll get a win out of Sunday.
Great stuff, Charlie. And John, final word with you. You won a county intermediate hurling medal back in 1998. I think you were full forward that day. And you've been manager of a lot of these players over the last decade or so. Like Sunday is D-Day now.
It is. I tell you, and Charlie's quite right there. There's so many people involved with these players that are taking the field on Sunday, and it starts right back with the school. Same as any of us. That's how we started to learn our trade. With the teachers, and we moved on then from the schools to the club and to the secondary schools, and there's been an awful lot of people had a hand in a lot of these players all the way up along. But for Sunday, like Charlie said there, I sit in the stand on Sunday and. Every ball that they will kick, I'm kicking it with them, because I have seen them in the field. I've seen what they've gone through, in the training and the commitment and some of the stuff that they've missed out on while the rest of their friends are gone off to wherever for a weekend or on a holiday or whatever. These guys were in the field, running around the place, learning their trade, and they're getting their chance on Sunday. They're playing in the county final. Every ball that they will kick, I'll be kicking it with them, and I'm sure there'll be lots of other coaches and parents, and you talk about the commitment and Charlie missing the buzz. It's a savage buzz to be had to be involved in a team that's gotten to a county final, and you miss the buzz. You do miss the buzz when you're not involved, and especially on a county final day, would you love to be standing on the sideline? I'm not there, and it doesn't matter. There's somebody there. And they have earned their stripes for Sunday, the players, and it's great for them to be there, and it's great to see them there.
Stephen, can I sorry, Stephen, just on that, and we're on that point, and let's not forget certain things. I mean, Robbie O'Dwyer, who would have taken over from my position at the end of last year, has put a huge amount of work into where commercials are this year. And unfortunately, just the circumstances there of the family circumstances of his brother passing away there only in the last number of weeks. Unfortunately, Robbie wasn't able to see it out. So, he has left his mark on this team for this year. So again, when we talk about people who contribute, he had a huge involvement in it. And I'm sure that Tommy Morrissey and Philly Ryan now, who are in charge now, we're working with him. It's been a bit seamless in that, but I'm sure everybody would agree that and our thoughts are with Robbie and the family. But he would certainly have they wouldn't be where they are maybe today without what he's done all year. So I just want to mention that.
Great stuff. And
plus Stephen wondering, asking John why you're not in the panel first. What's happening in your own situation now? That I thought there was still a bit of football. I've seen your football skills in the past. I'm just wondering, is there an element of regret that you're not in that panel?
Well, can I answer that one to you? Can I answer that one? It's pity you didn't.
John, please, John.
Pity, I think it's an oversight on the management. That he's not there, because we played a veterans match there a few months back, and Stephen absolutely bossed the whole game from start to finish. And I would say I hope the management don't live to regret the decision of not involving him on Sunday.
There you go, John. I'll tell you, I've seen him in action. The more on the soccer end now. There's a soccer sort of flair there, as you know, from the past. But you're right. They may regret it, John. They may regret it.
Absolutely. I'm available to tag out if needed. Yeah. No, tennis is my game, lads. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to both of you today, and I'm really looking forward to Sunday. And hopefully, the winner will be the best team on the day, and we'll see how it goes from there. And lads, it's been just great chatting to both of you. Best of luck to all the teams involved: Upperchurch Commercials, Ballina, and Mullinahone. And thanks again, lads.
Thanks, Stephen. All the best.